Coming to you from Long Beach, California, this is GovLove, a podcast about local government, brought to you by engaging local government leaders. I'm Meredith Reynolds, Deputy City Manager at the City of Long Beach, and your GovLove host for this episode. GovLove is produced by ELGL, Engaging Local Government Leaders. You can support GovLove by becoming an ELGL member. ELGL is a national volunteer-run, membership-based nonprofit organization with a mission to engage the brightest minds in local government. Check us out and learn more about our $50 annual membership at elgl.org. And now on with our show. Today's guests are our ELGL board members, Mike, Toney, and Cassie. Mike Ekey is the Assistant City Manager for the City of Belton, Missouri, and is also our ELGL Board Vice Chair. Toney Thompson is our State Director of Strategy for North Carolina. He's an ELGL board member and a GovLove podcast co-host. And finally, Cassie Johnson is the Deputy Director for the City of Scottsdale and is our ELGL Board Treasurer. Welcome to GovLove, folks. Thanks for joining me. All right, so today we are going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be on the board for ELGL. This is a very key position for the health of our organization, for the support of our members, and we are in the process of recruiting for the next board cohort. So to get us started today, let's talk a little bit about and hear from our board members about their ELGL origin story. How did you learn about ELGL? What brought you into the ELGL orbit? And what motivated you to be on the board in the first place? So Toney, let's start with you.
Yeah, my experience with ELGL started probably over a decade ago. ELGL, when they were kind of young and starting out, asked a couple members in my class in the MPA program at the University of North Carolina at the time to do a project to study basically the gender breakdown of like assistant county manager roles across North Carolina. So me and two other my classmates did that project. And after a couple months, ELGL asked us to present at, I believe, ELGL's first ever conference, which was in Detroit. And so they flew us out to Detroit to present our work, which was a really awesome experience for me at the time, just, as a student and entering into public service. And I've just been involved ever since with ELGL. So it was just really awesome that they trusted students with that opportunity.
So you're one of the OGs, Toney.
Yeah, maybe one of the OGs. I like to think of myself as like the second generation kind of.
That's awesome.
OGs,
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what about you? I feel like you're also an OG.
I would say I got connected with ELGL back in about 2014, 2015. I was brand new to local government. I'd had a career I'd come from higher education, and before that was in kind of like marketing and recruiting. And so I knew nothing about local government. And just to even date myself even further, this was back when tweet ups were a thing.
Right.
And so I started making jokes online through social media about this new position in local government I had. And all of a sudden, these really just kind of hilarious and amazing and fun people started coming out of the woodwork. And as I started getting connected with them, one of the first things, it was like, hey, you really should take a look at this ELGL group. This seems like something that's going to kind of meet your energy and what I was trying to learn at the time. And it was just a fantastic group of people to get connected with online. And then we started in Kansas City hosting one of the first pop-up conferences, and even attended the conference in Chicago when it was hosted there, I believe in 2016, and have just kind of been going along with the group ever since.
You found your people and you never look back.
100%.
Yeah. Cassie, what about you? I know that this is also your people, and you and I and others have had these conversations. So how did you fall into the ELGL orbit?
It was a blend between the original Twitter days and a city leader in my organization who was connected. And I remember my first City Hall selfie, like over almost 10 years ago, which has become a staple in my life. And my family and friends all know that whenever I go anywhere, we have to stop at a city facility to take a City Hall selfie. And I'm on my way to getting a graphic of the entire United States and City Hall selfies across. So it's a good annual goal to add something new to that. But
That's
I went to my first ELGL conference in Golden with a coworker who had just started with the city and kind of never looked back, and really loved the people and the connections and the camaraderie that you started with, that Twitter pocket friend environment and vibe, but really getting into a room and being able to spend a few days together in a very curated way around things that we all share connectivity, regardless of what our professional background and role was. As a police person walking into a conference where there's not typically a police scene, I still felt as welcome and relevant as anybody else in the room. And so that began the love relationship with ELGL.
Yeah. I feel like that's a very similar story for mine. Back in the day, online, really looking for a place that was beyond just my position, right? So I had spent some time in the Parks Department, in community development, and I was more of a generalist. And so I was looking for people with different perspectives that were working across silos and engaged, and went to one of the previous couple conferences in Durham and in Phoenix, and similarly never looked back. And so I think all of us at some point were tapped to say, hey, would you be interested in providing some additional support for the organization through board service, and being able to say, yeah, sure, this is great. Like, of course I want to support the organization, and figure out what the next iteration of it will be and how it serves its members. And finishing my last year as board chair has been super special. And so one of the big things that those of us on the call who are on the board have been spending our time on is ELGL's new strategic plan. So the last board cohorts had a strategic plan for the organization, that really brought us successfully from 2022 through 2025. And so this is our contribution. And there's, Toney, myself, and Cassie are rolling off the board at the end of June after 3 years, and really hoping that the new strategic plan is in a place that will carry the organization forward and, give it strength and, infuse joy into local government service, because that's what ELGL stands for. And so let's talk a little bit about, folks, the strategic plan. So I know we've all been a part of those sessions internally, and we're about to be able to share this with our entire organization. We've begun to talk about this, and our North Star, which I know when we were talking about this, just really gave a bunch of us kind of chills and was like, yes, this feels right. This North Star that no one in local government leads alone. So how does the board bring that to life for the broader membership? And Mike, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think this is something that just about everyone in local government can identify with in some way. It's, for me, I came from a communications office where it was just me in the office. Even now being, as an assistant city manager, it's like I'm the only assistant city manager in the organization. And I think that resonates with folks in local government where that's kind of the same story, but you are surrounded by folks who all have kind of this common goal of public service, this drive to be in public service. And for us as an organization that really, we focus on the joy of the work that we're doing, it just makes sense that, we're going to try to bring together as many people who share in that joy, whether it's City Hall Selfie Day or whether it's through the book club or the mug exchange. No one out there has to feel like they're alone in public service, and no one should. And I love that that is our North Star that's going to help drive us and drive ELGL for the coming years.
Yeah, that's particularly true of small cities where you might be the only one doing a thing. But I think to your point about it resonating more widely is, I work in an organization of, over 6,000 employees. And there's times where even though you might not be the only one of your kind in a particular position, that the work can feel very isolating. And I think, ELGL steps up and fills that gap that might exist in our industry and local government, in a way where we really exude joy. Joy is one of the first values. I don't know of any other organization that has that, and I think that's pretty special. Cassie, what about you? I know when we're talking about no one leads alone, did that resonate with you? And how do we as a board, and can the board bring that to life, for our members?
Absolutely. I think one of the best things that ELGL has been able to give me is that piece that you were just saying, like being isolated in a role, or there's people in my professional area that are around the country that I could rely on, but sometimes my experience was so unique in different ways that you need a bigger network than what you feel like you can curate by yourself. And I think that the organic nature of it, where something like a mug exchange, where I briefly connected with somebody several years ago, and I have a shelf in my office where I have and keep all of my mugs, right?
Same,
And
same.
several years later, I'm sitting and I was hosting and facilitating the board retreat after the 2022 conference in Phoenix, not as a board member, just as a volunteer. And I brought out all of the mugs and I asked the board to pick their mug for their day. And we had tea and coffee, and several people that were at the table were my organic mug exchange folks from years prior. And
So
the
cool.
relationships that we formed through those connections and shared experiences, and sometimes laughter and sometimes tears and sometimes just like, what am I doing here, right? Those are your people. And so being able to see how that just naturally grows and shifts and changes, but then knowing that they're also there in my corner. And so even as people come and go and roles change, the fact that you always have somebody that you can send a quick message to, whether it's on LinkedIn or a text message, and just say, hey, thinking of you, and or I had this experience, what do you think? Those are priceless when you need somebody that you can trust and rely on, and you know that you have shared core values. ELGL creates that nature organically, and then it's allowed us to really build on those relationships over time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and Toney, being the OG, you've kind of seen how the organization has manifested some of the original premises, right? Like this aspect of breaking down silos, and this aspect of like big tent organization, like rising tides lift all boats, right? So how do you see this new North Star that no one leads alone really brings forward some of those original things that were so key to the start of ELGL?
Yeah, I really love, this new North Star for us, because when I first started my career in local government, one of the things I was just infinitely struck by is it's almost impossible not to be able to find somebody who's experiencing what you're experiencing or doing what you're doing, like somewhere, like either in the country or just like right next door to you. And so it's really powerful to be a public servant and know almost intrinsically that you can find somebody to connect with. You can find somebody who is going through or has experienced what you're currently experiencing. And, to me, there's anything that's worth doing is worth doing together. And I just think it's so powerful that, with this new North Star, that it really speaks to that. At the end of the day, everything that we do in local government, we have to be accountable. We are serving somebody, and that we can always, if we need to, find somebody to help us do that better. So I just really think it just speaks to the power and connection that inherently exists in public service.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing you say, that while the words might be new, right, we might have put them together in a particular order for the strategic plan, is that this has been here the whole time, and we're able just to now articulate that it really strongly for the new strategic plan, which I think is really cool. So let's think about, from our strategic plan, there's volunteers behind the scenes that actually make this happen, right? So that's those of us who serve on the board. We have a number of folks who serve on our volunteer committees, and we're now looking for the next generation to come behind us and carry this strategic plan forward. So let's talk a little bit about what board service for ELGL entails. how long does one serve? What skills or perspectives does the board need right now? Cassie, let's start with you.
So it's a 3-year commitment to a board service role. And that is every year we bring 3 people on. And so it's always rotating, 3 people off, 3 people come on. And then you have kind of a cohort that's there in the middle with a little bit more experience. And there's several committees that you referenced. We have the communications committee, the events committee, and then the governance committee. And all 3 of those share kind of the workload that keeps an organization like ELGL rocking and rolling. And so I'll just speak to the governance role and experience because my role as the treasurer has been really in that business role function of just keeping the operations moving as a volunteer board. And so I've served as the treasurer, kind of a incumbent treasurer the first year, and really learning the ropes and what we needed to do. And then the second year and third year, I served as the treasurer and have been training the next treasurer that's coming on after I roll off the board in a few weeks here. And so those are the things like evaluating our monthly budgets and establishing the budget and making sure that our tax returns are filed and working with our staff support that we have as a bookkeeper and an accountant and monitoring all of those just normal everyday expenses, but also looking at the membership and coordinating with our members who need support in getting their membership dues paid, working with those who are looking at the job board and what they need. And so all of those financial pieces that help an organization like ours, which is a 501c3, really work. And the governance committee sets the bylaws and our secretary duties and those pieces that if we were a bigger organization with true staff and positions, that something like an executive director would do. But I will let the others speak to the committees that they serve on too and what those roles look like.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing about having you on the board, Cassie, is you are well suited to some of those things, like that works for your brain, and you're really able to bring those strengths forward to our board. And but there's other folks who are on the board that are there to maybe lend a hand and try something new, right? And so that's also a great thing, is that it gives you a chance to kind of expand what you might do for kind of your day-to-day job. And so, Toney, for you, what have you found to be valuable as a board member, and where were you able to contribute?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, my experience on the board these last 3 years is uh, I've always worked with passionate people. And I think that's just like an inherent value. So if you have a passion for public service, this is the really a great opportunity for you, first and foremost. And I would also say, as you alluded to, I think it's really important to be willing to try new things. So I'm on the communications committee, and
Yeah.
that's never been my strong suits in my local government career. But it's really awesome that I've had that opportunity because it helped me become a GovLove podcast host, and so it really has expanded, my skill set in local government, that has translated to other aspects of my job. And I would just say, being detail oriented and just being willing to uh, learn and work with others who do have uh, a a real skill set in something, and just being willing to like learn from them and add that to your own, public service toolbox. So I really think this is a really great opportunity for people to hone their current skills and just add to their tool bag, and it's something that's really important.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that, because one of the things that you often provided is kind of that strategic vision look at things, and you would ask really insightful questions and like offer, like, I've seen this in other strategic planning places, because I know you spent a lot of time of your career doing that, where I haven't, and I've been able to do exactly what you just described, kind of learn from you as a result. So that's been something that I've even seen in my own experiences serving on the board that you mentioned. Yeah. And then, Mike, what about you? So in this space, where when you have stepped into this role, what value have you seen for yourself? What have you been able to contribute? And perhaps, you're going to be you're the one on the call who's still going to be on the board. So what skills or perspectives do you think that we need right now in the new cohort?
We need it all. I think, right now, I mean, truly, it's what I love about being on this board and what I love about this organization is, we are that Big Ten organization. We want to include as many folks who are passionate and want to share their joy, and really, those are the only two requirements. And I think that says a lot, especially, selfishly from the communications committee. What I think is really kind of fun, and what gives me joy is, even with our committee structure and with a board structure that can feel intimidating, but you are hands on with the work. I get to, and my committee gets to, on a day to day basis or every week, we have, hands on opportunity to shape what the message is that comes from the organization, what the fun social posts are going to be to get folks to read our morning buzz or to participate in GovLove, and to participate in the conference. I mean, even working in my own organization, there are still layers of approval and other things that our communications has to go through. But to be able to kind of say, hey, I have this kind of cool idea, and to execute it and participate in it in an area that I'm already passionate about, I think that's what's really cool. And if there are folks that are interested in doing that and kind of lending their talents and their passion and their joy, man, they would absolutely be welcome, especially on the communications committee.
Yeah. Well, and I also serve on the events committee, in addition to serving as chair in this last year. And sure, yes, the organizational piece of like making sure you have meetings scheduled and creating agendas and moving business along for the organization has been great. But I don't necessarily have the same kind of creative outlet in my executive role at work that I do here with ELGL, which is super refreshing. And so being in the space with others who are super creative. We brought to the members last year the conference with Camp GovLife, and it was a whole, camp theme in Santa Rosa, California, and we were able to kind of lean into some of the, Snoopy references because Charles Schultz was from there, and have a really great conference this year. I cannot wait. Plug to the committee who's been working on the conference for 2026 in Indianapolis. It has this government Grand Prix theme, and I'm so excited about this. But being in that space to really bounce these really creative ideas off of one another to manifest in the way that it has, that again, Mike, to Mike, your point, like you can't do that at work all of the time. And so this has been such a great creative outlet because it triggers that part of my brain that I need in order to bring that creativity back, in the other spaces that I work in. So that's been super great. And so if for those who are, good at comms, great at events, there's other sorts of things there that, we always need. And then just, the business of running the organization, and new programming, right? So there's things that we could be doing that are outlined, and aligned with our upcoming strategic plan that, we have the capacity to grow, which is pretty neat.
And I think one thing that's the magic of something like this, I always say internships are like the best way to kind of like speed date your profession, right? Do I like something? Is this where I want to spend my time for the rest of for however long? But
Yeah.
a board opportunity like this also could give you the opportunity to kind of see where your skill sets lie and what brings you joy and sparks passion. And so you have an opportunity in 3 years that you could rotate through all of those needs on an organization like ELGL and try your hand at something that maybe you don't do every day and
Yeah.
realize, ooh, I actually really like that. Maybe I do need to take a path where I get to do this more. Or you go, oh, that is really not something that I enjoy. And I think that this is a one and done. And you do it in a way that you have people that are going to support you and help catch, and you don't have to feel like you have this burden all by yourself, or you have to make this really formal commitment in a way that your livelihood relies on it or some way. You can try in a safe place where people will just support you, mentor you, coach you, and then
Yeah.
you can decide, I love this, or yep, that was fun to try, and I'm going to move on to something and try something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you bring up this aspect of maybe finding that aha moment. for yourself, and really kind of leaning into that joy. What's a moment on the board that made you think, like, this is why I do this? I know we as a board have had many of these aha moments, but Toney, what about you?
Always going to the conferences is like always number one. Just seeing so many passionate local government, public service coming together, and I think the ELGO conference is the most unique local government conference that's
Yeah.
out there for sure. But for me personally, it's always volunteering on City Hall Selfie Day. Just being able to track all of the pictures and posts that are coming in from across the country and even internationally sometimes, and just like reposting that and just seeing the amount of joy that's out there as people are just, really expressing their love of public service and where they are working. It's just always like a really important touchstone moment for me. And so I'm going to be sad that I can't do that anymore. But that's number one for me for sure.
Yeah. We will still look forward to your own personal City Hall selfie during selfie week and live vicariously through everyone else, right?
Absolutely.
Cassie, for you, what's one of those like reasons for you on the board where you're like, man, this is why I do this?
I think there's some recent ones, and we've already talked about the Northern Star, but having a statement that just so strongly resonates in a way that I kind of didn't see coming out of that strategic plan process as a person that's a facilitator and oversees it for my own organization. And
Yeah.
and you can get that really prescriptive, kind of corporate-y, dry, we're here for, right? That when we say goosebumps, like true chills when you sit there and then you really reflect on the joy piece and all of those moments. But that joy thread throughout my time and tenure has been really important to me. I had the opportunity to represent ELGL at Local Government 2030's convening in Phoenix, and I was there with so many, to Toney's point, of passionate people who just have this vigor for local service and community service and doing the right thing for the right reasons. But I brought with us our work hard, be kind pins, and the spark that people saw, and they went like hotcakes. I mean, people were just like, do you have, and I was like, let me go back to my desk and see if I have more for the next day, because people just resonated with that premise of work hard and be kind. And we talk sometimes about how passionate people can sometimes care very loudly, but we can also be that piece of calm and kindness that's equally loud, but has a different sense of peace that comes with it. And so having those moments that have been there throughout my 3 years, and they just pop up at the most magical moments, kind of like a spring flower where it's been a really cold winter, and all of a sudden you see that little brightness and you're like, yep, there it is. That's why I do this.
Awesome. And Mike, what about you? What's your aha moment? Like, this is why I do this. This is why I serve on the ELGL board.
I think for me, it was two things. One, it was our conference this past year, and I'm a huge fan of puns, and so being able to do all of the camp puns as we were marketing the conference and getting folks signed up, and the fact that folks, I mean, played along makes it sound like understating it, but like people were really invested in it and really kind of had fun with it, and I think took a lot of joy from the conference and the fun we were having and kind of made it some of their own, which was phenomenal. And really, the second one was when we were part of the kind of doing some of the strategic planning. We hosted here in Kansas City a local event, one of our supper clubs, and I kind of made a joke about like, well, hey, it's right around Valentine's Day. Let's make it an old school, like an elementary school Valentine swap event. And nobody questioned that. I mean, everybody at that event showed up with like a stack of Valentines to hand out to everyone. Some of them were government punned, some of them were, just like the fun candy stapled to it. But everyone was just kind of, they were invested in it. They were just in it. And it just, I have to kind of force myself to take these moments to go, like, wow, people this resonates with people. This kind of this joy and the fun, and these are folks that want to share it with one another. And that to me is just that's why I do it. And that was kind of my aha moment.
Yeah. Well, and you know, for me, over the last 3 years, you know, many of the same things that you all talked about were aha moments, and you know, resonated with me. But this is such a special organization. Like, and if you're not engaged or involved, like you just got to be like, I don't know how else to say that, but it's kind of one of those things where you know it when you see it, and you start to see it in these places where we manifest, in the social media sphere. You start to see it outside of that, where you're making those connections via text or other, you know, phone call or other spaces where you reach out, and you know, you have your coalition of the willing at your fingertips to help you. Those are the reasons, you know, why I do this, and why I volunteer my time in this board capacity, because there's no other space like it, and I didn't know I needed it until I was here, right? And the playfulness and the joyfulness, that is so much a part of public service, manifests in such a fun way with this organization. And it's you know, as we grow up in our careers, you know, we lose some of that playfulness, some of that joyfulness, and you know, that our little 9-year-old selves would be so sad to know that we grew up to be these people. And this organization really steps in and says, you know what, stickers are still cool. You know what, you know, these valentines are still cool. You know what, you know, grouping with other friends around like-minded people around, you know, local government and our call for service is still cool. And I think that's, for me, kind of why I do this. So very much aligned with the rest of you. So as we think about our upcoming cohort for the board, you know, and we have our call for applications out. You know, some people may be thinking like, gosh, volunteer board service sounds really intimidating or time consuming. Might you tell people, particularly, you know, for the ELGL board, what would you tell people, for someone who may be about on the fence about applying? What advice would you give, you know, particularly somebody who just loves local government, is called to public service, and maybe they don't think they're experienced enough or they're unsure? How would you encourage them, you know, for that board role? Mike, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think the best thing that I have received from ELGL is, you know, we always talk about it. We have networking events, or we network within our you know, local government sector and things like that. And I feel like ELGL just, you know, we don't just network. We expand our network, but it's a network of friends. I mean, I truly consider, you know, my fellow board members, you all, friends. And you know, the time we got to spend at conference, I mean, we're scattered across the country. So it's not like we have a whole lot of in-person time together, but the work that we're doing is so meaningful. The way that we're doing it is so intentional that, you know, I kind of go back to, you know, I definitely don't feel like I'm leading alone on this. And I've got this great board that supports all of these initiatives that we're doing. And so it kind of goes beyond just expanding a network to where, like, we've got a group of friends that we're doing a lot of fun stuff with. And so, you know, there's not a lot of experience needed when you're having this much fun.
That's right. That's right. And Toney, what about you? Like, what advice would you say, or what nudge would you give to people who may want to apply but are nervous about doing so?
Yeah, I would say being a part of an ELGL board, or even just, you know, some kind of volunteer opportunity with ELGL, this is a safe place to be your authentic self. It's a safe place to, you know, practice, you know, and deepen your career in public service. And it's a safe space to just find some joy. I know that's something that might be a little hard for some people right now with everything that's going on, but I've never, in my 3 years being on the board, found working with y'all as something that has been a detriment, you know, to my work, to my days. So if you're just looking for a place to just be yourself and bring joy to your work, then I definitely encourage you to apply.
And then Cassie, what about you? What's your advice?
I have had opportunities in the near decade that I've been aligned with ELGL, and I volunteered in different ways. I was a buzz writer. I've written for the I Have to Ask um, series, and I participated in the retreats, and I've gone to the conferences, and I've been a speaker at the conferences, and so I've kind of always kept this thread. And there was a period several years ago where, because of those involvements, I had been asked, like, hey, have you ever thought about a board opportunity? And I had, but I hadn't with ELGL. I was on other boards. And as much as that sounded like an amazing opportunity, I was very aware at the time of what I had capacity for. And so I said I couldn't then, but this is what I can commit to. And it was still committing to being in the writing rotation, which I find so valuable with me as a person. I write at work every day for somebody else's voice, but ELGL gave me an opportunity to write professionally. And we talk a lot about the joy and the fun and all those things, but make no mistake that ELGL is still a serious professional organization that supports your serious professional growth opportunities and desires. And so I got to talk about serious things in a way that made them less intimidating and daunting in my own creative way and voice. And so I did that until there was a time where I did have capacity and I was able to really give my all. And I was able to help with tasks that we needed, that I had capacity for, that were what I needed at the time and what ELGL needed. But I also knew that if I wanted to try to do something else, I could have had that place and opportunity here with these people to do it in a, like I said earlier, in a way that was safe, and I could fail for myself without failing for the organization because I had people to buffer me. And so there were things that weren't in my normal wheelhouse that I've been able to dabble in through the last 3 years that I wouldn't have had the opportunity in my normal day to day or in another association that I participate in. And those are timeless and priceless, and I'm going to carry that forever. And so my own professional identity, my own professional voice, that's been curated through ELGL friendships and relationships. And those are things that I'm going to be able to continue. So even as I fall off the board, my plan is to get back into the writing rotation for Morning Buzz. You're welcome, Mike. And so, because we always need writers, right? We always want people who have, everybody has something important to say, regardless of where you are in your career. Sometimes that early career people have fresh perspectives and new ideas, and we want to know those. Tenured people have experience and have gone through things sometimes over and over again, and those experiences are meaningful. So no matter where people are, we as an organization need that. And so whether it's a board opportunity to try something new or to do something that you're really good at because we have a need for it, or it's volunteering for one of our committees, or it's volunteering to be a buzz writer, all of those things are impactful for you as well as our membership.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I structured this question in such a way about, someone who is not, experienced enough or feels like it's intimidating. Like, there's no such thing with ELGL where you're not experienced enough. That's the cool part of being part of the organization. There's no such thing with ELGL as it being intimidating, right? That's the great beauty about the support that you get from your other board members. It might be a little bit time consuming. It's a volunteer role, right? But this is where the doers of the world in local government shine, right? There is no bureaucracy. There is, very little barrier to saying, I want to do something and try something. And, it might be a wild and wacky idea, like the theme of government Grand Prix for a conference, but people are like, you know what, that's kind of cool, and run with it and make your idea better. And, the people who are in that space really get to see their ideas come to life. And I think that's pretty cool. And so we currently for ELGL are recruiting for the next cohort of our board. Applications are due on May 29th, 2026. And you can find out more information on our website at elgl.org. If a board position, like to Cassie's point, is not correctly timed for you, we do have a variety of other opportunities to get involved. We have a number of committees that we talked about where we're looking for volunteers to plan our upcoming conference, events, supper club, City Hall Selfie Day, book and mug exchange, and a variety of other things and professional opportunities like Analyst Academy that you can get involved with. You can be a writer for Morning Buzz. You can be a contributor through the GovLove podcast or recommend guests for future episodes. And you can be part of a larger organization as a member to see what we're all about. So I definitely encourage those who are interested in board service, don't miss out. Come join us and be a part of this amazing organization. So that ends our GovLove episode for today. A big thanks to Cassie, Mike, and Toney for joining me to talk a little bit more about the amazing opportunity that we have to serve on the ELGL board. Subscribe to GovLove on your favorite podcast app. New episodes drop every Friday. If you are already subscribed to GovLove, go tell a friend or colleague about this podcast or share on social media. Help us spread the word that GovLove is the go-to place for local government stories. GovLove is brought to you by ELGL, Engaging Local Government Leaders. The best way to support GovLove is to become an ELGL member. You can reach us online at elgl.org/GovLove or at the GovLove podcast on social media. Thanks for listening. This has been GovLove, a podcast about local government.